Yeah, and I can't believe this is even a number. I mean, like, so they figured out that to feed like an individual, you'd have to have 3.25 acres per person based on
Mm-hmm.
the actual population of the Earth. It means that we would need currently to make that math work, we would need 3 Earths to make that work. But so the math's still out on that. But you figure Tokyo has 37.4 million people in it, but that's only in a 6,000 square kilometer city limit. If you compare that to like the area of like 60,000 square kilometers that like a country like Latvia or a state like West Virginia has, then if you took Tokyo's model and you put that amount of population in a size of a Latvia or West Virginia, you could, you know what? I realized I haven't been intimate with anyone in over a year. Yeah,
I'm sorry to hear that.
Never mind. I've gone down a rabbit hole. I shouldn't go down that rabbit hole.
When did that thought hit you?
Just now, as I was reciting those stats that I spent all day researching. For the little side project.
Welcome to the Garble Podcast. I am one of your hosts, the Get Down from Hispanic Browntown, that beast that roams in the Pacific East. Ladies and gentlemen, Ramon.
And what's up, everybody? It's Nick, Pirate Napano, Captain Poutine. Anything else Ramon wants to call me? What's going on?
Not much, man. What's going on with you this week?
Not a lot. That's hence my intro. I'll just put my notes to the side there and get my news story out. So hey, what are we talking about?
I was going to ask you the same thing.
I think based on my background, we're going to be talking about science, possibly things that frighten us.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about what seems to be like the fear of science that people are developing more and more as time goes on.
More and more. It's funny. It strikes me as an ebb and flow type of thing.
It's really not, though, if you go based off of some of the stuff that I was looking up.
Okay, that'll be interesting.
Yeah,
that'll be interesting. I'm thinking like Dark Ages, Age of Enlightenment. We kind of lean into it and then we lean away, type of thing. But
no, it's not. It's well, you could go back to the Age of Enlightenment and look at everything that we've done since the Age of Enlightenment. And comparatively, we've made leaps and bounds. Like if you were to take a man from that century and show them just one of a simple piece of technology that we have today, they would think it was magic.
You watched the Daily Show?
No,
you've seen it though.
Yeah, I've seen it. Trevor Noah, right?
Yeah, currently. Yep. And I think this one's back from the Jon Stewart days, but one of the correspondents they had, Wyatt Cenac, he went to like a Republican convention one time, and he asked the question, what do you think George Washington would say if he was at this conference right now? Right? Just to kind of get people's reactions. And one person that they put on film turned it around and said, what do you think George Washington would say? And his answer was, oh my God, where am I? What is this? What are these electric lights? What is this thing that I'm talking into right now? What is going on? He just like freaked out, like he had been transposed out of time.
If only.
Yeah, that's what they would say. They would freak out. I've been taken from my home.
All right, let's get into news before we get into the topic.
Yes,
per se.
I think you should start with yours.
Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, rapper DMX has passed away. We lost a great one, man. We lost one of the great ones. You want to talk about impassioned music. You want to talk about I got into an argument years ago with some religious friends of mine because I said that, going to a DMX concert, because I've actually had the chance to go to a live DMX concert.
Nice.
going to a DMX concert back in the days was like a religious experience almost. And they were like, oh my God, you know, the regular hoopla that you get from fucking people who are like just narrow-minded. But yeah, I mean, that will forever be one of those moments that I remember.
Yeah.
And we lost him. There's still some confusion because, like, I'm still seeing reports that say that it was. Some reports are saying that it was a heart attack. Some reports are saying that it was an overdose, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with his family. I'm going to believe his family, who's saying that it was a heart attack.
Yep. Family, and through the family lawyer, the statements that are coming out was he had a heart attack. And I mean, the fact that he was, you know, in the hospital, they were able to take him off life support. He was able to, you know, breathe on his own and all that, but had no brain activity means, for me, that's consistent with a heart attack victim, unfortunately, not being found in time.
Yeah.
Just a lack of oxygen to the brain. I am not a doctor. But no,
but you play one on television.
Yeah, from time to time. But no, I go with that, and I think it's sad, and it's unfortunate. He was 50. 50. I mean, dude, too soon. It's
Way
too soon. It's too soon for anybody. I mean, in this day and age, I know, you know, back in the day, 35, you were the old guy on the block. But yeah, no, too soon in our modern day and age. And yeah, you know, I don't know that he was coming out with new hits or anything, but we lost somebody that contributed a lot to just art in general. He was such a I don't even want to say a niche. Like, he was what would they call it in the tech industry? Like a disruptor.
Yeah.
He changed it, you know. He was so singular that everybody else like jumped in and tried to do that, and it was a movement. He was a movement. He was a force. Sucks.
Yeah. 2021.
I know. What is this supposed? Is this 2018? Is that the year that?
Yeah,
we killed everybody off?
And then the funny thing is the Prince of Wales died the same day.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say Prince Harry.
No, Harry's the one that married Meghan Markle. No, this is Philip, and he was married to the Queen. And
Queen of England.
Yes. Sorry, I should have specified. Yeah, he was 99, so less shocking there. Less shocking, but still.
I'll be honest. I didn't know that there was still. I didn't know that the Queen's husband was still alive.
Yeah, exactly. He didn't either. If you looked at recent pictures, not to make fun of him, but you know, but he was 99, and I think they just took his driver's license away like a year or two ago.
Jesus.
So he lived a very rich and full life in every sense of the word. So him, I mourn less. He had a good run.
Yeah.
He had a good run.
Isn't it amazing? Like, what do you think is the age that it goes down where people stop being sympathetic of your death and they just like, oh, yeah, it was time?
It's whenever you hear about someone passing and you don't say, "Oh my God, what happened?"
Mm-hmm.
That's when you know they were old enough.
I think that is.
I think it's different for the individual. I think it's different for the. I might be.
Betty White is still kicking.
Betty White's still kicking, but she's how old is Betty White?
Like 101.
No. She can't be.
Okay.
She's younger than you think, if I remember correctly.
Look it up. There's this thing
How
called
old
Google.
is Betty White? 99.
Okay, so I wasn't off by much.
No, you weren't off by a lot. I thought she was younger, like lower 90s. But yeah. Yeah, she's the last golden girl standing. She won the tontine of that cast.
Mm. Anyways, let's get into it. So, what do you?
Yeah. So the news story I had was the Mars rover.
My bad.
No worries. The Mars rover launched its helicopter.
Yes, it did.
So we have a helicopter on Mars. Only a matter of time until Uber automates it. That was terrible. I apologize.
Yeah, it was.
But yeah, so we did that. We did that thing. And that's, there you go. We're one step closer to Star Trek at this point, because we're exploring in the air on a planet that is not Earth for the first time. And another milestone for the U.S. Is that when you look at the accomplishment of that, is that something that sticks out to you, Ramon?
No, it doesn't. The country that's doing it doesn't matter to me.
So if China had done it, or the Ruskies?
Yeah, it doesn't. Well, it doesn't diminish. I think there's certain things that you have to celebrate just for humanity.
Mm-hmm. And the scientific accomplishment.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's something to celebrate. I mean, you know, I'll be interested to see later when they start releasing images of what an actual flight. You know, we've all seen the rover do its little pan of the Martian landscape. I'm interested to see what a flyover looks like from a helicopter distance, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm sure scientists are too, since they put it there for like study and stuff.
Should be interesting. We're getting to the point where we're able to explore our solar system.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's an exciting thing.
It always. I still want to drill into what's is it Europa? Which moon?
Or Io?
Io. Yep. Io's the real like ice planet, right?
No, Io's a volcanic mess.
Okay,
you're thinking of Europa.
I'm thinking of Europa.
Or Enceladus.
Yeah, the one that's the ice ball, because one of them's more of a planety moon, and one of them's like an ocean locked in ice.
Europa's an ocean locked in ice. So is Enceladus. Okay. The other one that was always seemed to be catching on the news is Titan.
Yeah, Titan. But they got a really like dense atmosphere, right?
Yeah, it's the only moon in the solar system that has a dense atmosphere.
Yeah.
Or an atmosphere at all, for that matter.
So I think I'm thinking of Europa, where they're like, you know, there's probably an ocean under there, because every time it gets close to Jupiter, it constricts from the gravity and spews water out into space, like ocean water out into space. And it's like, I want to go fishing. I don't care. Well,
the reason I said Enceladus is because the same thing has been noticed. Enceladus actually has geysers that shoot water out into space.
Water too. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was something different for them, but I'm probably wrong. One of them, the one that you squeeze and it shoots water, I want to go to that one. But yeah, I think it's exciting, which leads into this. I mean, I'm sure people are frightened by there are some people, some percentage of the population that's frightened by the idea of going and disturbing an alien habitat and what could come back and get us. Like if you watched Aliens, and you got face huggers and stuff. I mean,
really, is that what you're afraid of?
I mean, not me.
No. But you think that the average person is afraid of exploring the solar system because they're afraid of finding life on another planet.
So it's interesting, because whenever I've heard any kind of debate on what, you know, finding life specifically, it's people are like, cool, you know, that's either fascinating or, you know, a huge opportunity. Or no, it means that they're going to conquer us, whatever it is. Anything from a virus on up to intelligent life is going to conquer us, and that's why we shouldn't explore, or that's why we shouldn't make contact. Is the fear argument that I've heard for, you know, life on other planets, similar to, you know, we should probably put a border on put a border wall up. You know, we're afraid of of the unknown coming in.
Mhm.
So that same mindset.
The only problem with that is, and it's a stupid mindset. It is that we have done the equivalent of shouting into a room, and now, and what I'm talking about is, like, if you think about the radio waves that are made their way out into space that are now like 100,000 light years away from Earth.
Mm-hmm. We've been announcing ourselves.
We have been announcing ourselves for so long that you ran into a room, screamed, and now you're worried about what the guests have to say about you.
We've been dumping trash in the ocean, not thinking about it for a while, and because it's a big ocean. So in your analogy, it's a big room.
Oh yeah,
and also what I watch on TV, it doesn't affect space in my brain. Is probably the thinking. Like, yeah, it probably leaks out, but whatever, it's a big sky. So
if there are aliens out there that can do radio astronomy like we do, they are watching our television from the 1930s and 40s.
What do you think they're going to think? 50s. What do you think they're going to think of War of the Worlds when that hits them?
I don't know.
As a new release.
But we've given them, enough information on the human race.
Mm-hmm.
Hell, plus, if anything, we should be worried about. So at the time when radio signals were really prevalent, the most powerful signal that was put out was Hitler's announcement at the Olympic Games.
Well, thankfully, if Star Trek has taught me anything, aliens don't speak German; they speak English.
Mm-hmm.
So we should be okay. Another terrible joke. I apologize.
Yeah, it's horrible, man.
I'm off my game today. Or I'm just in dad joke mode. I can't tell which. But yeah, no, we screamed into a very large room, and I think that's one that flies under the radar for folks just because, it's hard to quantify.
Mm-hmm.
Because radio frequencies, we've been using radio frequency telescopes for years. We've been sending signals, in the off hours.
The Arecibo message that was sent out back in 76, if I'm not mistaken. There was a giant radio signal that was sent out by the Arecibo, the Puerto Rico Arecibo radio station when it was still in operation. And, a lot of scientists got upset because they said, yeah, that's the equivalent of you shouting up and down the street, like calling attention to the Earth.
And they were pointing at, was it Betelgeuse?
What? I don't remember exactly which system they were pointing it at. And it doesn't work quite that way. I mean, you can point it at something to send a direct message, but that message is still going to emanate in space.
Yeah. It could still be picked up, but they were going for a close star. I remember that.
It might have been Proxima Centauri.
Maybe. I don't remember off the top of my head. Betelgeuse just sits in my brain right now. But yeah,
Proxima
no,
Centauri could have been it because it's our closest neighbor at 1.4 light years.
It's not bad. And yeah, but I think that gets to the crux of your question. Like, scientists, at least in movies, they go, if it's possible, we have to do it. I mean, for science. Like we have to, and there are morals and ethics and all of that. But when you do that and you send out a signal because you can, and then people start after the fact questioning the ramifications of your actions, that on one hand is actually healthy because we should question, but we should probably do that before we do something. Like, think about environmental impacts, how much different that would be if we had the foresight to go, okay, so we have an idea. What are the impacts of us doing this idea, as opposed to just going, hey, we have an idea, let's do it.
Right.
So, but yeah, no, coming in after the fact saying we're sending a radio signal into space that's going to take, thousands of years to get somewhere, to the point where our technology to travel through space will probably outpace the wave.
Like, at some point it might. Yeah, it could very well do that.
Yep. At some point we'll be talking to whatever aliens are around the star we transmitted to, and we'll have a good relationship, and we'll go, oh, by the way, in a few years you're going to start picking up a signal if you still care about radio waves. Mm-hmm. Just wanted to let you know that's on its way.
What do you think the likelihood of life out there is? Because I think it's incredibly arrogant to think that we're the greatest. Like everything, there's something called the oh God, I'm trying to remember the name of the Copernican paradox, which basically says that Copernicus got in trouble because he believed that the Earth went around the sun.
Yeah, and
they put him on house arrest.
That was not the convention of the time.
Right. They put him on house arrest for that. Mm-hmm. The Copernican principle basically says that there's nothing special about us. We're average, right? So if we're average,
yeah, there's Vulcans, there's Klingons, there's all of it out there. No, I look at it this way: like I would be. If you gave me a crystal ball or knowledge of the future or all the universe and there wasn't life out there, I would be shocked.
Yeah.
I would be shocked because like I've seen enough mathematical like studies, at least anecdotally for myself. I haven't dived into it, but they like mathematically there has to be life somewhere else out there. Yeah. There's no way that we're an anomaly and we're this anomaly. You know what I mean? Like there's I also find it hard to believe that there isn't conscious thought in the universe like that other than here. Like it doesn't make sense to me just statistically. Right. The likelihood that this level of consciousness and the fact that, there are other alien species out there with podcasts is less likely than finding like animal life, like stumbling upon a planet that has dinosaurs,
right?
More or less, that are the dominant species. That's probably more likely, but there's got to be intelligent life out there. I think absolutely. For the purposes of this discussion, how do you think people view finding equally intelligent life or more advanced intelligent life?
I think they're scared of it. And I don't think they're scared of it for the reason that you said, that aliens. I think that they're scared of it because it would bring into question God.
And that'll be a percentage of the population, sure. I watched Stephen Colbert years ago now. When he first started the Late Show, he had Tom Hanks on. Mm-hmm. And they did a bit where they were just asking the big questions of each other, kind of like what we do here. And Tom Hanks asked Stephen Colbert, what do you think Santa Claus does the other 364 days of the year? And Stephen's answer was, I think he's still delivering planets. He's still delivering presents to the other planets.
Okay.
Which, Tom Hanks's reaction was it blew his mind. But when you think about it, that's hilarious. Like you have all these other cultures and maybe there's a unifying thought or a unifying cultural trait. Mm-hmm. Like, wouldn't that be fascinating to find out whether it exists or not? If we all thought that the star in our sky that was the closest was a god at one point in our history.
Yeah, and I think
we could all bond.
That would be like the best case scenario.
Yeah. And just, one thing that would be fascinating, not the reason to discover other intelligent life, but just a fascinating cultural tidbit. Mm-hmm. Like whole other planet, whole other race of beings, whole other upbringing, whole other culture. we all thought the same thing about the big bright thing that went away every X amount of hours. I think that would be fascinating. I think the discovery portion of it would be just absolutely fascinating. Would it change my day to day? I guess I don't know. I guess it depends on how involved we get with the other planet, like trade wise and job wise and things like that. Culture wise, that would all depend. But to be afraid of it, I think it goes back to a common theme we have on the show, which is, fight or flight. We're scared until we're not anymore. And our default is we're scared of the new.
Right.
The new could kill us. And we want to make sure it's not going to kill us first. And then, okay, we'll accept it.
Right. All right. So let's really get into this topic.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is the cause of people's, for lack of a better word, disrespect or disregard of science?
So in general, I think it stems from an inferiority, and I should say complex after that, because no one is inferior. If you're, what's a term that's not insulting? Because I'm trying not to be insulting right now. Salt of the earth. If you're of sort of the day-to-day mindset, I have a family I need to support. Everything else is kind of bullshit because I have a family that I need to support. If you're of that mindset, which is fine. I'm not being disparaging in any way, shape, or form there. But when you have somebody like that, if their world gets rocked by a scientific discovery, they're not the ones that are going to be at the front line of this is awesome. They'll probably come around. But if you ask them point blank, hey, you remember when the Hadron Collider was going to come online?
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
And people were afraid it was going to rip a hole in space-time and shit.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens when particles collide. Whatever.
Sure.
There was fear of that. And then it happened, and it was turned on, and that, scenario didn't play out, and everyone instantly forgot it. Everyone's, dander gets up. The hair on the back of their neck goes up, whether they're choosing to be excited about that or they're choosing to be like scared of that. I think it comes from kind of your own motivations, and what you're kind of trying to do with life. If that makes sense.
I guess. I think a large part of the fear and hatred of science nowadays has to do with media, and how science is played out in the media.
Yep. Yeah. The idea that equal time has to be given.
Right. That this bullshit, like, ladies and gentlemen, there's no alternative facts.
Yeah.
And anybody who says that there is trying to feed you a load of shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you want to talk about, well, even this is kind of hard to say, but if there's a debate going on, right? Let's say in politics, because that's the easiest. Doesn't even have to be politics, but that's the easiest one to draw an analogy for. If there's a debate in politics where the idea of Biden just did a infrastructure plan, right? And there are two sides of the argument, which is, and they're both centered around, how do you spend the money? Or do you spend that much money, and what is needed? And there's a debate to be had in terms of what is prioritized. All the work needs to be done. That's no question. But what is prioritized and what is the biggest bang for the buck and who benefits from what. You know what I mean?
Right.
All of that is open for discussion, but you can't say we don't need it.
Right.
And when you get into science, or when you get into a lot of the discussions that are on your media these days, it's sort of the yes or no, pro or con.
There is no yes or no. There is no pro or con. Like how many times?
That's how it's staged. Yeah.
Right. Like how many times have I said, no scientist that's worth their salt will say for sure that this is going to happen, because there's no such thing as certainty when it comes to science. It's like, well, the chances are really high that it's going to be this one thing, but no scientist that actually practices science the way that it's
supposed to be thought of. Yeah.
Supposed to be thought of. Yeah. Is going to say with 100% certainty that this is what's going to happen.
Yep. I forget where I saw it, but there was an interview with a scientist where they were talking about that phenomenon specifically for how things are presented in media. And what happens is science in its way of actually doing that, like, according to Hoyle on how scientists should think, when they ask a scientist, hey, do you think blah, 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 the response is it's a very low percentage, because they'll never disqualify anything unless they've tested it.
Right.
And the question that the guy who was explaining it said, like, if you ask the scientist, can you fly? Like, until that scientist goes up to the top of the building and takes a nosedive, he's not going to be able to prove it one way or the other.
Right.
All the evidence points to him not being able to fly, but he hasn't actually tested if he himself can fly. So he would never say no 100% unequivocally, no, he or she, sorry. But the likelihood is dramatically, like 99.999% that no, he cannot fly.
Right. Close your eyes for a second and go on this magical journey with me.
Oh, right? Thank you. Okay.
All right. So I'm going to just name some careers, and I want you to think of the people that represent that career.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So plumber, what do you envision?
What do I envision? Well, I guess I'm going to say slightly overweight dude. Plumber's crack.
Yeah.
That guy.
Overalls.
Like, yeah, overalls or jeans.
Right.
And that's how you get the plumber's crack. Overalls if you're smart and don't want that.
Jeans. He's got a plunger in one hand.
Yep.
Okay.
Or a wrench. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, tool belt. Sure.
But there's a clear image in your mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would also postulate that everybody had that same image.
Yeah. What about when I say astronaut?
That's funny. I just see the spacesuit.
Right, and that's the point that I'm kind of getting at.
Oh.
So you envision somebody in like a spacesuit.
Yeah.
Out in space, they're doing the spacewalk.
I know there are people in the blue jumpsuits that do the press conferences, but the first image I have is the spacewalking suit.
Okay. What about when I say doctor?
White lab coat, stethoscope, chinos, clipboard.
Yeah. Okay. Nurse.
About the same. Scrubs, maybe.
Okay. Now, let's apply the same thing to scientist. And what do you envision?
White lab coat, clipboard. It's surprisingly like a doctor.
Surprisingly like a doctor. It's similar.
Yeah.
Except that image has changed over time, because there was a time where when you said the word scientist, people envisioned people like Albert Einstein or Copernicus or, these people that we respected and revered. But nowadays, when we talk about science, or scientists, the people who actually do the work of science, that image gets muddled or befuddled with other things. You know, we see doctor, we see, and I think we have to blame
TV,
media for sure, because media has changed our perception of what it means to be a scientist or somebody who practices science.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny because I'm in thinking about it, not just off the top of my head, I'm thinking someone who is a scientist in the lab. I'm not thinking about scientists, you know, that exist outside of the lab.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, you know, would you say a marine biologist is a scientist?
Yes.
So my sister's an actual marine biologist. That's what she went to school for. Mm-hmm. And most of her study was done outside in nature.
Right.
And Albert Einstein was doing theoretical physics in an office, in a coat and tie. There's so many different genres, but the first image I had in my head was somebody mixing things in a lab.
Right. And I think that's most people's image. But, you know, I think we said that it's media's fault, but I also think it's the fault of this character. You probably know this character: orange skin, funky hair. Yeah.
Fraggle Rock. I remember it well.
No, I was thinking about Beaker.
Oh, yeah.
From the Muppets.
Are you putting this all on Jim Henson? Oh.
No, I'm not putting this on Jim Henson. But I'm saying
we will welcome all of your hate mail.
But Beaker, that character, is something that, you know, a lot of kids grew up with. Mm-hmm. When they thought about scientists.
And Bunsen. They were both wore the lab coat and were scientists. Yep.
But like, what was the thing about Beaker that stood out? You know, she's kind of nervous.
Yeah.
Was it a she?
I always thought it was a he, but never defined.
Yeah. Okay. We won't get into it, but because it takes away from what. But yeah. Beaker was kind of like nervous, not antisocial, but
you got that vibe.
Yeah, like, you know, weird, didn't fit in. Mm-hmm. And that perception of that is painted a lot of people's image of what scientists were, mm-hmm. because they grew up with that image, if that makes any sense. And if you even think about it nowadays, like, what are the popular medias that portray scientists? What's one of the most popular media that portray scientists up until recently?
Just in terms of viewership, I would say like CSI.
Really? You would say CSI?
I would go CSI because, like, the most popular character on that show until she left was the lab tech that processed all the material that they brought in. She was the highest rated character on the highest rated show when it was in its heyday.
Okay. What's another show that's really popular that portrays scientists? That was on for like 12 seasons. Big Bang Theory.
Oh, okay. All right. Big Bang Theory. But they weren't in the lab coats that often, just when they were in the labs.
But they were scientists.
I was trying to come up with Rick and Morty.
Morty.
And he always wears the lab coat.
And he always wears the lab coat. And what's he's doing? So, again, antisocial or an outsider.
Anti-establishment, definitely.
Anti-establishment.
For Rick and Morty.
If we go with the Sheldon example, then, you know, it's, again, antisocial. Mm-hmm. A little weird, awkward, sticks out.
You're going for outside the norm, and depicted as outside the norm, as opposed to being the norm.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I see it.
So that depiction paints an image in people's mind when they think of the career that goes with it.
Yep. Yeah, you'd be an outsider if you went in this path. You'd accomplish a lot. No one's going to take away the accomplishment, but you're the outsider. Now, the idea of exceptionalism, right?
Mhm.
It runs throughout every genre, sports movies especially. I'm
Mhm.
thinking fantasy. These are the elites.
Mhm.
You know, whatever ragtag group we just assembled into our Lord of the Rings grouping are the best of the best.
Mhm.
They're the heroes. They're the ones that are not a part of society. But you think that, like, when a scientist is posted in that role, you think that that's perceived differently?
Yeah, because
That's interesting.
yeah, and
Because I
again,
do too.
it paints the way that we look at that profession.
Huh.
Okay.
No.
Let's take it another step further. Like you were mentioning movies
Hmm.
and media. Celebrities.
Yep.
Celebrities also have a great deal to do with the way that we look at science and the way that we perceive science.
Give me an example.
Well,
Following, yeah.
which celebrity was most responsible for the anti-vaxxer movement?
That would be Miss Jenny McCarthy.
Jenny McCarthy, right? Because she got on a megaphone and she already had a lot of America's trust. I don't get me.
Trust?
Don't.
Attention.
You have to have attention, and trust.
Clout.
Clout. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you can point to a single. It's almost to the degree where you can point to her as the singular person who's most responsible for the anti-vaxxer movement.
She jumped on board. It already existed.
Well, she read a report.
She put a face to it.
She read a report by a scientist who wasn't really a scientist, who didn't get permission to do the science that he did. And that's a very important thing that this part of the process.
Yep.
He put out a report.
Yeah.
He put out a report. She read that report and assumed that, and you know, the funny thing is her son's not even autistic.
Yeah. Yeah, I forget. Was that a misdiagnosis or something?
It was a misdiagnosis.
Yeah. Which is icing on the cake for that particular argument. My favorite one, John Oliver did a bit on studies that are shown in the news. And at one point he showed a Good Morning America thing where they did study shows that eating chocolate is bad. And Al Roker is sitting in waiting to do the weather, and they go to the conversation part, and Al Roker goes, "Yeah, didn't we do a story last week that said eating chocolate was good? I guess what you should do with all these studies that we keep reporting on is just pick the one that works for you and go with that."
Right.
And it's like, that's not how science works.
That's not how science works at all. And that contributes to part of the problem, because you have people who are cherry picking their facts. And that goes to the heart of one of the issues that I was going to talk about next, which is the whole cherry picking of facts. You know, like, have you heard that rumor going around that if you can't pronounce something, you shouldn't eat it?
That's very old.
Saying. Yeah,
that's very old. Yep. And yes, I have heard that, because we're currently on if it's not natural, it's not good.
Bullshit.
Yeah.
Everything that, except that you can make the fucking argument. Excuse me, I'm getting impassioned again.
Go for it.
You can make the fucking argument that if it comes from the earth, it's natural. Okay, so by that definition, plastic is completely natural.
There are several marketers that would have issue with that.
no, but like this whole non-GMO, GMO, that whole argument back and forth, right? the definition of GMO and non-GMO has never been established.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you go into one company, you go to one company to buy a product that says non-GMO or GMO, whatever, you know, oh, this is 100% natural. Okay, if they don't have, if the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, doesn't have an agreed upon definition of what that is, then they could feed you anything.
Yep, and all of those terms, almost up into organic, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Organic is actually regulated. Anything else is marketing.
Right.
You know, natural is, marketing. There's for the reason that you said, there's no way they're going to get drawn into court and told to take natural off their product, no matter what it is. The amount of edible glue that is used in natural products is insane. I'm thinking the meat industry personally. That's one that bugs me. But yeah, no, it's you know, you can write a paper, you can be debunked later.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have a doctor or a scientist credit after your name, your report can be cited even after it's debunked.
Right.
Which is nuts.
And that's one of the things that that's why the whole peer review process is under review, because it's
not used.
Important.
It's underutilized, right? That's the main argument. That's what I've gathered.
No. The peer review process is the problem is the publication. So the peer review process itself is fine. It's the problem with people going to publication. Some publications have some publications have more stringent rules that they follow, where others don't.
So like I could publish my paper without it being peer reviewed in one article, but not another.
Mm-hmm.
And
and I think part of the thing that also contributes to it is the language that we use, because we talked about how like in science, a theory is almost one step removed away from a fact. But you hear the word it has to do with the way that science is taught in the United States and throughout the world.
Yep.
You know, the scientific method, hypothesis, we have to respect that. So when people hear the word hypothesis, they hear what?
What I hear or what other people hear?
Well, most people hear. What do you hear?
You tell me, because I'm not most people on this one.
They equate it with educated guess.
Okay. I wouldn't have gone that far. I would have said hypothesis is what you're trying to prove or disprove, and that there's no bias in it at that point, because you've got an idea and you're testing it, and whatever that idea is, fact or fiction, you're going to prove or disprove it.
If only it were that simple.
Yeah, that's my take on it. I don't believe that that's what everyone else thinks. I think, based on the education that I was given in high school, it was, so you come up with a hypothesis based on your own study and observation, and then you try and prove that or don't. And your results then get looked at by other people. And the only reason it's still a hypothesis is because it hasn't been made a law or a rule or whatever. It hasn't gone through that peer review process. That's what I remember being taught.
Okay.
I have teachers yelling at me right now, I'm sure.
I'm sure. But let me ask you another question to kind of get to the point of everything. If your house is on fire, do you call a firefighter or do you call a celebrity?
I believe I would call the firefighter.
Right.
I believe that's where I would go. Yes.
If you needed to have like your plumb, if your house is flooding,
Yeah.
do you go to the plumber or do you call the celebrity?
Yeah, probably the plumber in that
Right.
sense. Yes.
But there are people out there that like, no, they call the celebrity.
Not, if you pose the question that way, no, but I think, yes, getting your facts from someone who is talking on social media
And is not an expert.
And is not an expert, but
like we go out of our way to tell people, hey, I'm not an expert. We're literally the definition of talking heads. You and me.
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, you should absolutely fact check. We have several listeners that fact check us and call us on our BS quite often.
Right. But yet there are people out there that will listen to somebody just because they wrote a book.
Yep.
Or just because they were in a movie. Or because
elected to president.
That's a more modern.
Yeah. Well, we're in a modern age, man.
That's a more modern problem. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but you're absolutely right that, we know where we should go. We know where we should go. But if Rob Lowe pulled up and was like, yo, your house is on fire, I would be like, Rob Lowe, what should I do? Not really. Also, I would be like, you're lost. But I should probably deal with my house first. And we'll deal with getting Rob Lowe on his way.
What oh God, I'm sorry, I completely lost my train of thought.
That's okay. So let me ask you, since we're on a media kick, my artwork on the video is a cyborg. For anyone not watching, that's one that people are very afraid of. That one in AI, which for the purpose of our conversation, we'll group into one thing. And there's a celebrity personality, I guess I'll say personality, that has talked extensively about the fears of AI taking over. And that's Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Yeah. He talks about it at length. Is that celebrity? Or at this point, considering he's shooting rockets into space, and I say he, I mean his team, is that someone so close into the industry that that's someone we should listen to?
It gets a little tricky with people like Elon Musk because I would say it's okay to listen to Elon Musk. Because he's
everything dialed in. He's plugged in.
He's plugged into the world of science, and he listens to the science, and he allows science to direct him.
That's interesting. Yeah, he that's definitely the persona. He does go off the cuff a little bit. I will say that. He has been guilty of that in the past. But yeah, when you have somebody that's actually working on it, specifically for the Tesla division, where they're working on AI to drive your car, when he says we need to be worried about this, but he's still working with it, don't you take that with a grain of salt?
No, you can be fearful of something. Like, for example, I'm a cook. I like to cook. I'm afraid of fire.
But you still utilize it.
But I still utilize it to cook.
Okay.
Or if I like to cook and I'm scared of cutting myself, but I still utilize knives.
So
in the process.
Somebody with a healthy respect for the danger of the thing you're working with is a good thing.
Yeah, I think so.
I like it. That's a sound argument. It's a sound argument. I like it. What is AI something that concerns you? Are we going to go full Cylon?
There's so many other things that concern me.
Really?
Yeah.
Outside outside of AI, what concerns you? We'll get back to AI.
The fucking environment, for starters.
Okay.
I've been going on for years. If you've been listening to this podcast, you know how much I'm fucking upset and concerned about the environment and climate change and global warming, or whatever the fuck you choose to call it.
The warming of the things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's probably the most. So would you say that's more of a pressing concern because why? It's real and measurable?
Yeah.
Like a scientist or something? Sorry, I led with that question. So that's the more pressing concern because it's measurable. But when you have people talking about like AI being a possibility in the future, there's some measurement to that, a little bit, right?
What do you mean measurement?
So like anybody that cited that AI is getting stronger and faster and reaching the precipice that they're all worried about, they have actual like statistical data that talks about the increase in like computing power and recognition and all of that, like because they're worried about the singularity where artificial intelligence becomes sentient and can think on its own. That's the danger that they're talking about, because apparently, thank you, Ray Bradbury, when intelligent life actually gets to a point, or artificial intelligence gets to a point where it's sentient, it deems us unworthy or unnecessary and eliminates us. It's the Terminator at that point. But there is measurable data that shows we're working towards that, even if they don't know what the endpoint is.
Well, I think you and I have had this conversation before where we talked about the reality versus the. See, I think with art, when it comes to things like artificial intelligence, you for all you know, the artificial intelligence became sentient 20 years ago, and it's playing the long game.
That'd be awesome.
No, but I'm serious in the sense that we equate ourselves, and this goes back to that arrogance piece that I was talking about at the beginning when we talk about space. We equate ourselves as being the most intelligent creatures out there, and therefore anything that acts intelligently has to act like we do. If I like to think of it more like WALL-E, the movie WALL-E. You know, the artificial intelligence became sentient, or at least took over, and was just going to. It had been in charge for forever and a day, because we slowly surrendered our lives to the artificial intelligence, to the point where we were like these pig things that were just laying in troughs all day, watching and being watching television and being entertained and not using our legs, being cared for, right?
Do you think that's a danger? That
if artificial, I think if artificial intelligence is something that's really real, it would be so alien to us that it could plot out a plan that would take the problem with a lot of these fucking, and it comes back to media, it's movies, it's things like the Terminator, it's things like the moment that it became the artificial intelligence became sentient, it decided that we were the problem. Okay, it could still make that
Galactica,
Battlestar Galactica and all that stuff, right? It can still make that decision and decide to wipe us out in 1,000 years. Slowly. Because one of the things that a machine has an advantage over us is it doesn't need to, like, I think I told you this. One of the reasons that humans lose to computers now when it comes to things like chess is because we can only think but 10, 12 steps ahead. After that, the whole thing starts to fall apart.
Yeah, in our minds.
A machine can think 500 steps ahead
and hold all that.
And hold all that.
Yep. Yeah. I think you're saying Greta Thunberg is actually a sleeper agent machine, but okay. I think I'm following. Now the long game aspect of AI is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. It's not as sexy for the big screen. That's why
Of course not.
they can't put that in a 2-hour movie. But I like it. I like it, and I agree that they wouldn't choose an overtly violent or confrontational thing because they can weigh this out.
Right.
I agree. Or we're all in the Matrix already, and we don't even realize it. I mean, at least, recently we had a pandemic and we're doing everything through Zoom now. So we're just one step closer to being in the machine.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I get it. So what's the scariest thing for you? You dabble in the science.
Yeah, I dabble in the sciences.
Yeah. That's a really terrible way of putting it, but for the purposes of this show.
What's something I'm afraid of?
Yeah. Anything frighten you?
I go back to this idea of the environment, and because that to me is our most in front threat. It's clear to me that a lot of the things that are going on as far as the weather and as far as it all ties back to the environment, because we have not done our part to take care of this planet. And ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the tipping fucking point. We're no longer talking about if. Every year, excuse me, hold on, I'll get this out.
Okay.
Every year, including the previous year, is hotter than the previous year.
Yep.
When it comes to the weather.
Yep.
Every winter, like we have the polar vortex. Now, when the fuck was anyone ever talking about the polar vortex 30 or 40 years ago?
Well, we had a higher snowfall 30 or 40 years ago. I know that much. So, yeah, it's all measurable. And if you've lived long enough, you can see the actual differences. If you are watching for them, I guess. You can see all this. It's measurable. And that's a key part of science. But that goes into your fear model. Why we don't look at things that are right in our face, because they're scary. We just don't see them. We put it out of our mind. Also, when the problem is too big to look at and to really digest, as a layperson, like trying to go about your day-to-day life, you make up an excuse and you move on and you just go on with your day. And that mindset and that phenomenon leads to some of the reasons that we don't look at things. So there are things that are scary, that are new, that we can be scared of because it's abstract, but it's funny. The things that are in our face and that we can recognize on our own without any kind of study or training, we ignore.
Right. Murder hornets and
yeah. Which I think were solved, weren't they?
No, the problem hasn't been solved. It's an invasive species. I'm sorry, I don't know if I can talk tonight.
No, that's cool.
But it's an invasive species that's still being an invasive species.
They figured out a way, just like they dealt with the killer bees, that they're going to try and interbreed them into more docile species. But that takes time. So they're still out there, but they're not sexy news anymore. So we don't hear about it. So the problem's solved.
No, that's not how. Oh, God. All right.
That's how it works.
Good night.
In the media, that's how it works. Am I wrong?
In the media, but didn't we say that media is a problem itself?
Right. Exactly. But the topic of discussion tonight was, why are people scared? And people are scared, one, because the media tells us to be, and two, that we have to be able to wrap our brains around certain things. It was like almost a year ago that we talked about murder hornets. It's been there. And then I don't know anyone that died from murder hornet attack. So, okay.
Well, I don't think that was the fear with the murder hornets.
Well, the fear was they're coming to get us.
No, who was afraid of the murder hornets?
Oh, I was terrified. They're murder hornets. I have a thing with bugs. I have a thing with flying.
So you were afraid of them?
Oh God, yes. I heard they were invading. They were coming over our borders.
All right, Nick, I'm done talking with you. Have a good night.
All right,
if you're not gonna take this conversation seriously,
you know what? I'm out.
I'm out.
No, I was not a fan of murder hornets. I heard that they had a plan in place, and then it left my consciousness because there was a plan in place. Also, it was West Coast, so I didn't have that much to worry about. So it left my consciousness. But, you know, in terms of things that actually scare us, like when you say the environment, right? That's one that's been around for as long as I've been alive, that we've been talking about the environment and the need to fix it. And we haven't really. We've taken some steps, but nothing that has made a marked difference. It's always
the problem is that we're looking for a market difference, and the problem is that we're not going to see, because even if we stopped, like, and I'm talking about like right now, you know what? No, that's not true. The pandemic showed us at the early onset of the pandemic, we got to see how the earth can recuperate from the damage that we've done to it locally, and even on a bigger scale. We got to see how removing us from the equation solves the problem.
Yeah, there are still long-term effects that we've caused and we have to take ownership of. That won't be fixed just by us simply going away. Not short-term, like the dramatic effects of skylines clearing up and things like that. That's just local. But that stuff is all still in the atmosphere. We need to talk about developing and then do different solutions to actually like scrub some of the CO2 out, just to drop the temperature a little bit and also stop the cascading effect that turns us into Venus. We need to look at that, but that's in the future. In the short term, we can curb what we're doing, as we have with the lack of driving, which has been awesome.
Yeah.
And we can do our part, but we need to hold others accountable, like the main polluters. You know who the biggest individual polluter in the world is?
No, you're gonna say China?
I'm gonna say Coca-Cola.
Oh, even more specific.
Yeah, really specific. And you know, looking at things like shipping, mass shipping, and you know, how we get around this planet, all of that is being looked at. Not very fast, and also not everybody's, you know, totally jumping on board corporation wise, but those are the things we need to look at first and foremost. And then we can also all do our part, sure. But it's not all on us. It's not all on us, but we can do our part. But yeah, no, in terms of scared, what, you know, you said the environment is the thing that scares you. And AI is the thing that scares me. What do you think scares other people? What's the scariest thing you could think, like, or what's the thing that's making the headlines that scares the people the most?
Right now, vaccines.
Yeah.
Vaccine. Because it's going to change my DNA. They're going to put a tracker in me. They're going to do this. They're going to do that.
Yeah.
Just shut the fuck up and get the jab.
but that's another one that's another one that's media driven. And I always wonder who's driving that, who benefits from that conspiracy theory.
How so?
Like, okay, saying 5G towers and Bill Gates are the culprits here. You know what I mean? Like that old chestnut now.
That's probably some asshole online who's just trolling.
So somebody came up with the troll idea, but somebody else ran with it. Like, who does that benefit to keep that, to propagate that, to make that?
Well, we know that people, see, here's the problem. We know that people are fucking lazy and they want to feel special. And what's the best way to lazily feel special?
Know something that somebody else doesn't.
Right. And we've talked about this to great length. Like, I know something that nobody else knows. I believe something that nobody else believes. Yep. This makes me special. This makes me unique. This makes
all follow me. Oh, exactly. Which reminds me, like, subscribe, and share.
Right.
Oh, the hypocrisy. All right. Anyway, but yeah, no, that's the one, and maybe that's the one that people should be scared of. It's not science, but what is? There, it's that kind of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, which used to be taught to me as FUD, because that's how frequently we are scared, or at least apprehensive, about something that's new. And when we have new things that are close to home, like my news story was the helicopter on Mars.
Right.
It's all the way on Mars. Who cares? You know, like, in a fear sense, it's so far removed that that's not a thing. But it's a drone. At the early onset of drones, how many people were scared of drones? Which was a technological and scientific advancement. Right? That quickly got quelled by, don't worry, it'll bring your Amazon shit. And it got normalized.
Right.
But how many people were like, oh my God, there are going to be things flying over my head. What if they crash?
There are things flying over your head constantly.
Yeah. Yeah, but are they drones? It's the space junk one for me that I go, I'm going to be like Dead Like Me and get hit by a toilet from the International Space Station. That was one I heard the other day. They were like, oh, and that should have been a news story. Damn it. Anyway, here's the supplemental news story. The record for the largest space debris was set by the International Space Station. Did you hear about that?
No.
They kicked a load of lithium-ion batteries, a pallet's worth, that were done, and they replaced them, and then they just kicked it out into orbit because it's going to be a degrading orbit, and it's just going to burn up in the atmosphere. Lithium-ion batteries. It's like, oh, just add that to the atmosphere. That's cool. Don't worry, it'll burn up in a couple of years when it's finally
the Earth plus lithium.
Yeah. Lithium, that's natural. It eats carbon. It's fine.
Except that you have to take into consideration, like, okay, they're doing, again, if you're doing the work and you're the expert,
okay.
See, you're worried about something like lithium, but lithium is in the atmosphere.
Yeah. I'm worried about a pallet landing on my head, but not really, because I know it burns up in the atmosphere. I'm just saying, can't you kick it into the sun? Just throw it the other way.
No, it doesn't work that way.
Why not?
Why doesn't it work that way?
Yeah. I imagined it. It must be so.
Oh my God. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've enjoyed this episode of the podcast, please subscribe. Letting you know that we're available on all of the streaming platforms. We're on all of them now. And if we're not on a platform that you want to listen to, reach out to us and let us know, and we'll get on it.
Absolutely. And we are on YouTube. New videos every week. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, whatever you have to do on YouTube. I'm still learning it.
Yeah. Still learning the algorithm.
That's right. I should probably hashtag.
Yeah.
At some
Hashtag
point.
YouTube.
Oh, that's a good one. That'll get a
Yeah.
lot of hits.
All right, folks. Later.
Late.